Welcome to a special edition of Logiconomi TV. The first 2 weeks of November have seen world leaders and delegates from all around the world meeting in Glasgow for COP26 with the aim of maintaining the international commitment to continue to reduce carbon emissions and regain control of climate change. In this program, we will be talking to Wim Peeters, Vice President Business Development of EcoVadis, the world's largest and most trusted provider of business sustainability ratings. He will be giving us his view of what was achieved during COP26 and what impact it is likely to have on companies around the world, particularly those involved with the business of logistics. We will also be speaking to Ernesto Dominguez, President and CEO of Toyota Metro Handling Europe, to understand what his view is on the impact of COP26 on companies in the logistics industry. So let's start by introducing our special guest, Wim Peeters from EcoVadis. Hello, Wim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Wim, first, we would like to start with your perspective on the last COP26. Could you summarize the objectives that were set out, the conclusions reached, and in short, was it a success?
Well, I think everybody was watching the news over the weekend as the final agreements were trying to be squeezed out of all these, I think it was 197 countries trying to get to an agreement. At the same time, it's too little too late, I think, to really make sure that the world's temperature will not rise above 1.5 degrees. I think at the commitments that we have seen today, the temperature will rise to about 2.4 degrees, which is really exponentially more hazardous to the climate effects than 1.5 degrees would give us.
So indeed, you've been talking about 194 countries coming together, but if we look maybe more closer to home and to Europe, what has Europe been committing to, and what's the ultimate target from a European perspective?
Well, I think Europe has been much more aggressive and strong in this field of being a leader in the domain of reducing climate change. Commissioner Timmermans was very present, and we in Europe, we have already introduced quite a lot of measures to really help all the countries get there, particularly in the financial area. We've seen the Green Deal really pushing the whole financial industry towards much more stringent commitments and reporting on how investments and activities are leading to climate change. I think, Europe tries to be a leader, but again, within Europe, we see a lot of differences between East and West. And even in Belgium, we have seen, the individual regional governments feud about who should do what and who can do what. And I think it's a micro example of what is happening in the world.
Very interesting. If we look more specifically to our audience, which is an audience of supply chain professionals, concretely, what do you see as the role of private sector in achieving our ambition in Europe?
Well, I think if we as a world really are looking forward to getting action done and really getting some influence on climate change, it will not come from governments. It's a world and global problem, and we don't have a world government. We don't have any world legislation. So I think we will be looking forward to see leaders in each sector take initiative and really commit to doing things on their level. And of course, in the logistics and transportation, there's quite a significant impact countries can have. And I think the leaders that will be able to commit to reducing their impact more quickly and more significantly will be those companies that will be able to sign up their customers that are looking for a supply chain that is much more performant on the scope of climate change. So we have seen that also with 4 years ago, 5 years ago, with the Trump era, where everybody thought, oh, now the whole climate change issue is really killed. I think many leading companies at that moment took a leadership position and made initiatives on a corporate level, and I think combined, all the biggest companies taking action is much more important than 194 countries trying to get to a compromise.
Very interesting again. I mean, I think if you look to actually initiatives, what do you think are important initiatives? And if we look maybe more specifically, why is science-based targets such an important initiative in your view?
Well, science-based targets are important because we have seen over the past 4 years and even accelerated in the last 2 years, many leading companies and CEOs claiming to be carbon neutral by a certain date or reducing carbon of XYZ percentage by 2030, 2040, etc. I think those claims are dangerous and are open to greenwashing. So I think when a CEO or a large company makes a statement about a specific target to be hit by a certain date, that needs to be backed by science-based reporting. And so we've seen the Science-Based Target Initiative really helping large companies really quantify based on objective quantitative measures, so that a claim of a CEO is not just a marketing cry, but really objectively measurable.
Very good. And if we look to basically supply chain again, supply chain professionals, what is the top priority that they should have on their watch list at the moment?
I think supply chain professionals really need to look at all the innovation and technology out there that is potentially helping them reduce their own impact. And the first thing any large company should do would be looking in your own operations, but also in your supply chain as to what are you impacting mostly. And so it may be certain fuels you're using in your transportation fleet. It may be heating in buildings. For many Western companies, in many cases, more than 50% of your global impact is in your Scope 3 supply chain. So this is where maybe a good retrospective or introspective should be done by a lot of companies, trying to understand where the biggest impact on carbon would be, and if it is a supply chain, really doing an impact on the total supply base to understand which suppliers, which categories are mostly impacting carbon in your supply chain.
And actually, EcoVadis was set up over 10 years ago with the exact purpose of creating this more sustainable global supply chains. What do you think are your clients' biggest challenge currently?
Well, it's the biggest challenge is, of course, getting access to data in the supply chain. Many or most of the suppliers are small and medium-sized companies, privately owned companies that don't really have embraced science-based targets, or that are not really open or transparent as to how they perform, how they produce. So the big difficulty for large buying organizations is to get access to information on suppliers, and this is where we try to help. We have a whole engagement service where we reach out to the suppliers on your behalf to really ask them to open up and provide approved data on all the topics that we are interested in, and to really then grab that data, analyze it, and produce an objective, neutral report. And so that's the challenge. You know, if you try to do that yourself, it will be difficult getting access to reliable data. The second challenge I see is to go beyond just rating your suppliers, but to really act upon the results. So to really put the money where your mouth is, and to dare switch suppliers, to dare switch technologies, so that you minimize your impact going forward.
Very good. I have a final question. Is actually financing the transition was a big topic of COP. And currently we've seen that we have, for example, seen increase in energy prices with natural gas, for instance, going through the roof. How do you foresee the future in this area, and maybe more specifically on prices for electricity and gas, or maybe even hydrogen?
Yes, I'm not a specialist in energy prices at all, but what I think is that all this uncertainty and these price hikes of recent weeks will even lead more companies to investigate into new technologies, and to make sure that they first can build a platform of energy provision that is more stable, a platform that is under control and more reliable. I think it will just motivate governments and large players even more to invest in large capacity for alternative energy to be produced, through which we can then also invest much more into green hydrogen that will be not only needed for the heavy transportation like boats, airplanes, trains, trucks, but it can also use as storage of energy when there's more alternative energy out there than is being consumed. So I think I have my bets a lot on renewable energy and green hydrogen as the keys to a more sustainable logistics world.
Thank you very much, Wim, and thank you for joining us and sharing your experience.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
The question is, what does this all mean for business? Let's talk to Toyota Matter Handling Europe's president, Ernesto Dominguez, to get his reaction. Ernesto, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Mark. It's a big pleasure to be with you today.
And it's great to have you. What is your take on COP26 and more specifically on the role of private companies? And actually, what has Toyota Matter Handling done in this area to date?
First, let me say that we have in fact been measuring our emissions since 2012 and reporting them since 2015. So far, we have seen a 29% reduction as a result of focus and initiatives. And we will be continuing to measure the emissions from our facilities, from our vehicles, and from the energy that we use in our organization. And to your question, we have, like all businesses, been closely following the announcements from COP26 and assessing the role that we can play. It is important to recognize the major role of companies involved with logistics to take steps in the right direction. The movement of goods accounts for over 7% of global emissions, according to OECD data. So we need to set a clear example across all industries.
And there is actually a lot of talk about science-based targets. What is Toyota Matter Handling doing to be part of the solution moving forward?
I am pleased to announce that we are now committed to the world's Science-Based Targets Initiative, which, as you may know, is a partnership between the CDP, the World Resources Institute, the World Fund for Nature, and the United Nations Global Compact. It demonstrates, first, our commitment to continue to carefully measure and reduce our impact when it comes to carbon emissions. And there, our goal is to reach net zero in our own operation by 2030. It is also importantly because it means that we will also be collaborating closely with both our suppliers and our customers to ensure that this is a coordinated program in the future.
And actually, what impact will that have on suppliers and customers?
Yeah, we will be closely working with them to ensure that they become part of the process, with the reassurance that we have been testing the journey already and we will be leading by example. We will be aiming for a 55% reduction in what is called Scope 3. This means our suppliers and customers by 2030. You know, zero muda is our vision. It means elimination of waste, and that is entirely appropriate in the context of the challenge of the climate change.
And actually, how do you see the future?
There I see a shift in the driving forces to combat climate change. I'm afraid governments are proving to be too slow in many cases and lacking the power to make sufficient impact. We have seen something like that in Glasgow now. In contrast, companies around the world are now rising to the challenge, encouraged in part by pressure from customers and in particular the younger generations. I believe that industries have the power and commitment to make the changes that are necessary. At Toyota Material Handling, our philosophy, with its Japanese origin, is very clear. We will not do business on the shoulders of our people and the planet. And we would like to lead by example. We believe that it is entirely possible for economy and ecology to work in partnership. And we want to continue to be a successful and healthy company, but that is only truly possible if we are serving a healthy world.
Many thanks, Ernesto.
Ready to come back whenever you need me.
That brings us to the end of today's Logiconomy TV program. Without doubt, the consequences of COP26 will be with us over the coming months and years. We will continue to bring you news as it develops and look forward to you tuning into the next Logiconomy TV program. Thanks for watching and see you soon!